Oh man, let me stop that before they flag my music. It would be you, Johnny Gill. It would be you by Johnny Gill. And let me tell you something. If you guys have not checked out Johnny Gill, Ralph Tresvant, and New Edition, they are still making music, and they are making good music. The new edition. It actually says Johnny Gill featuring New Edition. Great song. Johnny Gill's new album. Great listening R&B. Ralph Tresvant still got it, and I think we get so caught up in what's pushed at us that we forget that there are some tremendous singers out there still making music. So don't get caught in the trap of just listening to what they tell you to listen to. Go find some of the good music still out there, and I love good music. Good morning, everyone. I am Keith K.L. Belvin, crisis specialist, author, educator, and I wasn't on yesterday. I had to go to the doctor. And guys, please do not wait to go to the doctor. I go make my regular appointments, get my regular blood work. I got work to do. Yeah, man. That's another thing too. Don't have a problem with having real conversations with your doctor. Your doctor is going to tell you what they're going to tell you. They're going to give you their professional opinion. Get all of the information that you need, and then make the best decision that you need for you. Don't feel that you're making your doctor upset by disagreeing if you are disagreeing from a very practical standpoint. And so also know your body, know the problems that you have, and then have a conversation and then come to a consensus. So my doctor and I had a conversation, and I've had her now for about 5 years. And we agreed on some things. We disagreed on some other things, but I got work to do, and I'll leave it at that. And for me, she was okay with my decisions. She told me all the ramifications and stuff like that, and I get it. But understand that at the end, you have to take responsibility of what goes around you, in your body, and in your mouth. And you have to own that, and you have to do something about it. No complaints, no whining. It's not acceptable. Okay? All right. Now, with that said, I pray everyone is well this morning. I pray everybody is doing good. And I want you to like this. I want you to share this. And being that we missed yesterday, let's go with two people today. Okay, let's go with two people today. We're going to tag two people that you think need to hear this message, because we're going to talk about the example Ms.Celie, and that should say gave us, not have us. That should gave us. I see there's an error there. I got to fix that. Let me take care of that. All right, because I put up a meme today that I created, and basically it talked about the reason why I work with women, and what examples Color Purple had given us. And I think, like, I love using movies as a backdrop to what I do. I used it in the classroom, and I still do. And today I have a meeting later on this afternoon. I have a meeting with a principal, because we're going to talk about how I'm going to run the mentor program for some of the young men at his school. So we're going to talk about what I'm going to be able to put together, what I'm going to be able to bring to the table. And I want to get an idea of what he would like, or what he would like to see the program become in his building. You know, I always want the input from the leadership. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hey, Nista. And we're going to see that they had to get the funding approved. And once he called me and told me that the funding was approved, I'm like, okay, cool, let's go. And now I get to shape the program in a way that's going to help the school community that I'm in. So I'm going to have that meeting with him today, and we're going to see what happens. So before I get into what I'm going to talk about today with Ms.Celie, let me give a shout out to Chef Danielle, owner and operator of Ethel and Annie Mae's Soul Food Kitchen, 497 Albany Avenue, Crown Heights section of Brooklyn. She is one of our sponsors. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. As well as I got to stop by your wonderful establishment last weekend and had some real good food. So shout out to Chef Danielle. On Facebook, it is Danielle Chef Moore. On Instagram, it is BK Chef Danielle. On Instagram, the store is at Ethel N with an N, not A-N-D, and Annie Mae's Soul Food. Okay, Ethel N Annie Mae's Soul Food on Instagram. So make sure you check her out. And nice spot, nice casual spot, nice small spot, closed in place to eat outside, and it's closed in, and it's has turf around the gate so people can't stare in and watch you eat your food. You can go in and enjoy yourself. Also, when you go into where you order your food, it has, like, it was a former Chinese restaurant, but she has a nice, gigantic, clear window that you can look into, see her preparing your food, see how clean everything is. And I think that's a wonderful touch, because often you will have the way some places will almost like they're trying to hide what they're doing back there. She doesn't do any of that. She lets you see the love that's going into what they prepare. And I like that. And I think the location where she's at in Crown Heights, I think if she can get the neighborhood, because it's a diverse neighborhood, it's Jewish, Black, Caribbean, Jewish, African American, Caribbean neighborhood. And I believe if she can get folks to buy in, I think she'll be there for a good couple of years. So let's give a big shout out to Chef Danielle Moore, owner and operator of Ethel and Annie Mae's Soul Food. All right. So you should have liked this by now. You should have shared this by now, and you should have tagged 2 people this morning. All right. Looking at the color purple. Now, most of you watching know I work mostly with women. I work with women and I work with couples. More single women than couples, and then couples. And I work with some men. And I work with children too. But I don't work with children as much. I've started to glean myself away from that. And I don't work with men as much. I only have a handful. I have a handful of male clients, because many of them come to the table and they don't want to park deal. Now, here's the thing that I find interesting, right? I'm gonna hit you with this. My clientele is diverse, meaning I deal with whites, blacks, Latinos, Asians, Caribbeans, Africans. I deal with everybody, right? Why my male clients are mostly Caucasian. I don't have a problem with it. Like I said, I'm here to help anybody. But when I present some of the same things to the brothers who look like me, they resist what I'm trying to get them to understand. And then my Caucasian clients listen and do the things that we talk about in session, and it's actually working for them. And I'm happy for that. I show up at the table to try to change lives. And part of me goes, how come I can't get the brothers to come to the table? Because I know I can help change their lives too. But the sisters get it. So this morning I'm talking to the sisters. All right, we're gonna talk to the sisters. Now, one of my favorite movies, which is the favorite of a lot of people, The Color Purple. The Color Purple, from the onset of the movie, we have a ton of different things in place um, that you see. And I don't know if you've ever paid attention to it. And like I said, I am a movie junkie. I watch and pay attention to all aspects of a film. And it really allows me to see what's going on. And so the movie starts off with them playing with sunflowers. You see the sunflowers moving and everything like that. And then when they come out of the sunflower patch, one of the young ladies, who can't be no more than 11, 12, maybe 13. I'm going to say 11 or 12. That's the way she looks in the movie. Might even be older, 13, 14, but she's pregnant. We then see her give birth to the baby, and we see who appears to be her father take the baby and tell her, you better not tell your mother. So we already see that the abuse is in place somehow. We don't know that it's his. We later find out. So when we're looking at Ms.Celie, and the example that Ms.Celie says, here we have a little girl that's being abused from the beginning of the movie, has a baby, and doesn't even get to hold her child. And the child is taken away. We later find out that 2 children have been taken away. This same young lady is given to someone in marriage. She didn't even ask for the marriage. Given to the marriage, and it is abused in that marriage. And the whole time sex is happening. So we see that Ms.Celie is molested, had her children taken away. She is she is suffering domestic violence. And we know when Sugar Avery shows up, she calls her ugly. And just things are super negative, right? And when I watch The Color Purple, I think of things that I know my mom went through. And part of the reason why I'm focused on trying to help women is because I know the help that my mom needed. I wasn't able to present that help until later on when I was grown and now had the experience to be able to help. But by that time, my mom had some very deep, ingrained issues that she just wasn't going to let go. Um, and as a son trying to help, um, it was very difficult. Read up on sunflowers. They're the only flowers that bend to cover each other in a storm. I will definitely do that, Michelle. Thank you so much. And then they turn to the sun in the morning. We used to have sunflowers at my Michelle wrote, read up on sunflowers. They're the only flowers that bend to cover each other in a storm. And she's very true about that because at my grandmother's house in South Jersey, we used to have sunflowers. And when they would turn in at night when the sun went down, when there's a storm, they do tend to cover each other. And the beautiful thing is when the sun comes up, they then open up and turn to the sun. They're a fantastic flower that if you actually pay attention to them, you know that there's so much more at work than just us. And that was the one thing about living in South Jersey and having farmland and, having peaches, having apples, seeing what real squash look like, having sunflowers. But there's definitely something to it. And I don't think it's by accident that the author chose sunflowers and that we see the artistry of sunflowers. So I appreciate that, Michelle. And I will definitely go and look up to learn some more about sunflowers. I want to add that when I speak about this in the future. So as I was saying with my mom, because I got to an age, by the time I got to the age that I was old enough to try to help, and I had been helping, of course, but it's a little different with a lot of the problems that my mom had because they were so rooted in a lot of negativity. She was a domestic violence survivor, which my sister's father and I had a decent conversation about that. Let's just say I almost went to jail trying to convince him don't ever put his hands on my mom. But anyway, but my mom went through, and a lot of the abuse was she allowed. Let's keep it real. And then when I look at what my grandmother had went through, I realized that when we talk about generational curses, often we don't actually pay attention to how those curses are passed on. And it's not just mother to daughter to daughter to daughter, father to son to son to son. Sometimes it's father to daughter, mother to son. And when things are allowed that are negative to happen with no blockage, with no one stepping in and changing that direction, well, then it can foster and run through different generations. Sunflowers are one of my favorite flowers because the bulb is ugly, the rose is something magnificent, sturdy, and strong. It's the only flower that produces edible seeds. Oh, I love it. I love it. That's true. Dried out sunflower seeds can't go wrong. That is so true. And let me tell you something. So when we look at Miss.Celie, right? Miss.Celie is, for the most part, a movie. This is why I don't care what anybody says. To me, this is Whoopi Goldberg's greatest work because she embodied Miss.Celie. Because Whoopi Goldberg, when you see her, she's beautiful, but people would tell you she's ugly. Where? Where? Because when you really see her, if you can see her without being looking through the Hollywood lens, that is a wonderfully beautiful Black woman and has grown into her elder state even better. But in the movie, and I want to know who the little girl was that played the earlier Celie because she was outstanding too. And I remember when it said introducing Whoopi Goldberg because we had now got to learn who she was. But the film itself is incredible because you are traveling through this story. Now, I don't know, many of you, if you know me, have heard me talk about the Miss.Celie factor. I talk about that when dealing with mental health, about especially when building the church ministries, that time when Sugar Avery comes into the church, Miss.Celie is still dealing with her pain. I'll get to that in a second. But what I'm looking at is when you look at everything that went on in her youth, being with a man that she doesn't want to be with, being abused by that man. She's combing the little girl's hair. The little girl is crying. And she's like, yo, I'm gonna have to cut this. And she's like, no, don't cut her hair. And then he slaps her for talking back. But was she really talking back or was she trying to have a conversation? But he slaps her. So when she gets slapped, she holds the little girl's mouth while still trying to comb her hair. And I watched my wife try to comb KL's hair, and KL is tender headed. And Lord, the yelling and screaming, you would think my wife is in there trying to kill her, but it's to get her hair to look nice. And then once she's done, KL runs to the mirror and she loves her hair. But she's tender headed. But if you watch Miss.Celie, she's trying to just do what she's told to do and being hurt by it. And then what a lot of men will never understand, and I grew up in a house full of women, so I get it. Most men will never understand what women go through or have gone through since earlier in their lives. The abuse, verbal, physical, and spiritual, that they have suffered at the hands of men and other women. And then are told to somehow fight through that. And then when they become mothers, sometimes not a choice of their own, sometimes due to bad decisions, or sometimes based on what a man told them that he was going to be, and then when the child was conceived, they disappeared. I get it. And now that they're told, be strong enough to raise this child while still dealing with the pains and problems that you have had as a youth yourself. And folks don't think about that. And I know how from working in schools where a lot of that starts because I get to see it. I see what some of my sixth graders were. And then when they became eighth graders, I see what some of my little girls were, sixth and seventh grade, and what they were when I see them in high school. And I see some of the problems when they're in their 30s. That's the beautiful thing of having taught for 20 years with kids who are 11, 12, 13. I now are connected to them at 30 and 33. And you can see that some of what they're dealing with now is what they were dealing with when they were in junior high school. So you see Miss.Celie now has two children that she has not been able to have any connection with. So no healing. So God knows what postpartum was doing to her as a young girl. And then to have the only person, Nettie, who, regardless of what was going on, was going to rock out with her, was going to make her feel good about herself, was not going to allow her to believe she was ugly, to then have her taken away by the very abuser who abused her. And again, what you got to pay attention to is when Nettie shows up at Celie's house with Mr., she says, I couldn't keep his hands off me. So we know we're talking about her dad. So now he's trying to molest the next one. And we got to understand everything that is being, like, I'm going to give you, like, I'm telling you, listening to me, you're going to watch Color Purple totally different. You should be very emotional because early in the movie, they're going to a funeral. And Celia is doing the narration. And the way she makes it seem is like when the mother found out what her husband was doing to her children, it killed her. And then you hear her say, you're now going to do what your mom wouldn't do. It's abusive, very abusive. And I know it's for entertainment, but this was going on on a regular in the 1920s, 1910s, 1930s. So now as you fast forward and you see her now living with Mr. And when Nettie shows up, Mr. sees the more attractive young lady. So now he's going to try to do to Nettie what the father was already trying to do at the house. But Nettie's a fighter. And Nettie is basically, she's not having that. So she roughs my man off when on her way to school. And you hear her saying, I got to go to school. And I'm sorry, it's hard for me to watch because the ages don't sit well with me. And again, spending that time in the classroom, when you hear a girl saying, I got to go to school, and a grown man is trying to do something to her, it's hard for me to listen to. But you know why I do? Is because I know there are young ladies right now who are dealing with that at very early ages. And there are women who are dealing with the remnant of abuse like that from men in their households or men in their neighborhoods who were supposed to be protecting them, but instead was taking advantage of them. And many a brother does not understand the level of abuse that many of the women in their families who they're connected to have gone through. So now Mr. Unable to have his way removes Nettie, throws her off his property, even to the point of throwing rocks at her to get her to go away. And we see Nettie run off with the famous "only death will keep me from it." And you see Celie talking about right, because Nettie was teaching Celie how to write and how to fight. Because remember, she was like, you can't let these kids. And Nettie was giving her sound information. Don't let these kids, hey Flex, don't let these kids run over you. You're in control. She's like, nah, they're in control. She's like, no, you have to fight. I don't know how to fight. She said, I'll teach you. See, Nettie was a fighter. And Nettie had enough fight for the two of them. And then said, I'll teach you how to read too. And sometimes, and what that says to me, and I want you to pay attention to this, is that sometimes the healing has to be done through self, with self, maybe with one or two people. Sometimes it may just be the person closest to you. The two of y'all just have to dig in and fight whatever yourselves. And I'm trying to be that Nettie for some people. Somebody needs somebody like that in their life right now. Somebody needs somebody who's going to say, I will help you fight. That is why you hear me say, bring me your pain. You hear me say it. I'm asking you to bring me your pain, meaning allow me into your life to help you with what's wrong. And I say to you, why? Because I believe we can fix this. That's why it's my hashtag. Because I honestly believe that. Every time I help somebody, I believe I'm doing what I wish somebody had done for my mother, for my sisters. Because I've seen the damage. And it's lifelong. Now, when Suge Avery shows up and calls her ugly, the very famous scene you show is ugly. But again, I want you to peep something in Celie. She didn't know she was a fighter, because to be a survivor, you have to be a fighter. Celie, wonderful cook. How do we know? The kids was at the door staring. The dog was howling. And just the way her food looked after she cleaned that dirty kitchen. See, so she had gifts that she had to lean into, gifts that I believed helped her to survive. But I think when you see it, and as you go through the rest of the movie, and I want you to watch it if you haven't seen it. I watch it 2 or 3 times a year. That scene in the church with Suge Avery is so important, because if you read the book, Alice Walker book, if you read the book, her and Suge have a relationship, lesbian relationship. And I'm not shocked, because if you've been hurt by so many men, why wouldn't you turn to women? And that happens. I've seen it with some of the mothers of my sons. They were hurt so badly by me and other men that they turned to women. I get it. But if you look at it, Suge was hurting too, and that's another story that I could go into, but I'm not right now. Suge was hurt too because she didn't have a relationship with her father, and she was out here just doing her thing with men, because you heard it talk by Mister's father, Adolf Caesar, fantastic actor by the way. And she was just out here doing her thing, and she was the singer at the juke joint. And she even said to Celie, "You don't have a problem if Albert has sex with me?" She's like, "Nah, go ahead. I don't like it." And she's like, "What? You don't?" So again, seeing it from 2 different positions. But Suge had her own daddy issues. But that scene when God is trying to tell you something, and she comes. Now in the book, the young lady singing in the church is Suge's daughter. Keep that in mind when you watch that scene again in the movie. So when she's coming back down the road, bringing the fellas and the people from the juke joint heading to the church, and her voice is careening through the church, careening in the neighborhood, basically. And Mister is sitting there rocking back and forth. And they bust up in the church in a famous scene, and her and her father make amends at that moment. And you can see the expression on her face. And I would say to anybody, that's a teary-eyed moment. Myself too. We all cry at that point, even when you've seen it 1,000 times. But here's the thing. In that moment, Ms.Celie, everybody's enjoying themselves except her, because even though she's a business owner now, even though she's a homeowner now, so she has money now, even though she got away from the mister who was abusing her, and things are in a great place, she is still empty because she does not have her children and she does not have her sister. So even though Suge has had her moment, here's Celie. And then the next scene, when they're at the house, in these two scenes, I want you to please understand this because I'm coming up towards the end of the half an hour. Mr. is moved by God. Now pay attention, because Sugar Avery is singing, God is trying to tell you something, right? And we see that Mr. is sitting there, gray beard and all. And he goes and he gets his money. And remember, he put it in the chicken coop because they had found it inside the house. And he pays the fees and he takes care of the paperwork to get her sister and her children back home. Now I didn't skip over the part at the dinner table, which is a fantastic part where she's gonna cut Mr. up. Because Celie, knowing that her children were alive, it gave her strength. Actually, let me go back to that real quick. When she found out, now remember, I'm sorry I glossed over this. She was cooking the turkey. Suge said, I'm going to the mailbox. As an older woman, Celie goes, Mister don't like anybody touching the mailbox. And she said, if I waited on Albert, please. She goes out to the mailbox. See, again, Suge wasn't hearing it. Suge didn't care what Mister was talking about. When she comes back, she tells Celie, come with me. And Celie says, wait, I got to finish cooking. Come with me. And when she comes, she takes it to the bedroom and she gives her the letter from Nettie. And she's reading the letter, and then they realize that there's probably been other letters. And now they start searching and everything, and they find all of the letters. And let me tell you something. Mr. as evil as he was, I don't know why therapeutically he held on to those letters. I have an assumption. Because I think no matter how evil he wanted to be, I think a part of him knew he was wrong and held on to those. Now, that's just my assumption. I think that no matter how evil some people try to be, I think it was almost for him a sense of enjoyment. I'm going to hold on to these because you're not going to get these. Because he could have just destroyed them. He didn't. But I think a small portion of him was like, I need to do something. And then Celie starts to get her strength from reading the letters, knowing that her sister's alive, knowing that her children are alive, knowing that they're in Africa, knowing that they're becoming something that she couldn't provide, but they're not going through the pains of what she's going through. That poured life back into her. So at that table, when Suge says, Celie's going with us, and Albert starts to talk, and now we remember the classic scene when she's about to shave him, and Suge was like, I don't think that blade is sharp enough. We had already seen Celie sharpen it. She was about to cut my man's throat. But when she grabs that knife and Miss Sophia says, don't trade places with me, it was because she realized that everything came to a hilt at that point. To me, that was the breakthrough moment. I didn't even ask you for your sorry ass hand in marriage. I didn't ask you for nothing. But I got children. And he had a glimpse of human traits. Yes, he did, Nissa. And I think when you start to put it all together, now we fast forward, like I said, to when Suge Avery is singing. God is trying to tell you something. I think that's for us. Because when we're watching, God was trying to tell everybody watching something. Because we see Celie overcome all that. We see her become a business owner. We see her become a homeowner. We see that she became that because the man who was her father wasn't her father. So he's just some nasty molester. But when he died, everything went to her. The store too. So she inherited house and the store. But as the other young girl said, I got the money. Okay. So now, standing there at the house, holding lemonade, you see Squeak, you see Harpo, you see everybody. And they see this car pull up, and you see the regalia blowing in the wind, and she's looking. And let me tell you why that scene moves all of us. It moves me now as I'm talking to you. It is the full circle because she's running through a field. Well, how did the movie start? The two of these kids in a field. But now this older woman running through this field, calling out to her sister, Nettie. and almost in shock that after everything that would happen, here's Nettie. But this time, here's her adult children with her. Now, I don't know if we pay attention, and I don't know how spiritual you are. You know that I'm a man of faith. And as a man of faith, the prophetic part is that all that was meant for evil turns out for good in the end. And I believe Sister Walker wanted us to come away with that. Because there's a lot of loose ends. We don't know what happens to Mister. We don't know what happens with her and her children. Yeah, you have to read the rest of Alice Walker's books to understand that. But I think in this book, in this movie, it was for us to be able to see that no matter how bad things are, if we can make it through, God will make it right. And I know some people may not feel that way, but I get it. So what does any of this have to do with what I do? It is because I know that many of us have gone through, many of you, myself included, have gone through things in our lives that are devastating, that are hurtful, abusive. But what we're able to do if we get the help that we need, and sometimes we don't know where that help comes, because I don't believe Mr. ever told them it was him. So here, she may not even have an idea. And if you really pay attention to the end of the movie, when they're doing the maquidada in the fields, as the sun is going down, that's Mr. with his horse going on off camera. And again, that's not by accident. It's because here the abuser found God, as they say, found some human parts to him to let me try to make this right. And now I got a joke for that too. I think he's getting up out of Dodge, because if you remember at the dinner table, she said, when me and my kids get together, we're going to whoop your ass, pardon my language. So he was like, oh, that boy is pretty big. I'm going to get up out of Dodge so I don't catch this beating. That's just me, because I got a funny sense of humor like that. But I defy you to watch Color Purple again. But I want you to watch it. And I used to challenge my students with this. But now I want you to watch it, and I want you to look for the pain. And I want you to understand that pain. And I want you to say, my God, how is she going to get help for that? Because when you see the things start to turn in her favor, ask yourself a question. What about the people who it don't turn that way for them? What about the people that doesn't have a Suge Avery who helps? What about the people who don't have a Nettie who's strong? Suge was strong. What about the people who are still connected to somebody abusive like Mr. or the father? And then ask yourself, where do they get the help from? That's why I do what I do. That is why I come on and I say, bring me your pain and we can fix this. Because I know, because I was one of those wolves. I was never a mister where I put my hands on a woman. And I was never a molester, never that. But I hurt women in my own way. And I hurt women emotionally and often spiritually because of the lies that I told. That is the whole reason for me rewriting From Gigolo to Jesus, is that I wanted to tell my story because I wanted folks to understand that I get what I used to be and I can't go back and fix it. But all I can do going forward is to be the shepherd now to those who need help, to be a voice when a lot of people are yelling and screaming, but be a calming voice, to use this big body as a way to shield women from abuse and pain when it used to cause it. And so this is what it is. We can all be Shugs to people, even if, yes, that is so true. We can. And I think it's super important that we attempt to be Shugs and Netties. And that's what I try to do in my own form. That's what I do. That is the anchor to everything that I do as a counselor. It's what I do with my counseling. And I'm finding that the men who can allow themselves to come to the table to hear truth can make that pivot like Mr. did, but not just once, but on a regular basis and eventually transform into something different. That's the reason why I wrote From Gigolo to Jesus. I was never a gigolo, but it was the mindset of someone like that. And I am not Jesus, but Jesus is my focus. Hence, from gigolo to Jesus. Because now I'm heading in the right direction. Am I perfect? No. Have I been the best that I could be? No. Have I made mistakes? Yep. Have at times I've been hypocritical? Yep. But when called on my behavior, and when I've had time to reflect, I've had time to sit down and ask God, please forgive me. So I know what it takes to stand out in front of somebody and say, let me help you. So here's what I want to say as I get ready to get off, because it's 6 minutes after the 30-minute mark. If you're somebody that has gone through their own Ms.Celie situation, if you're somebody that has recovered like Ms.Celie has, put it in the chat. Here's all I want you to say. I was Ms.Celie at one time. We don't have to know what your pain was. I don't want you to expose that to the masses. Just by saying, I was Ms.Celie at one time. That's all I want you to put in the chat. We'll get it. And when you reach out to tag somebody, or when you share this, share it because you know there's somebody else on your timeline who is going through what Ms.Celie went through. But I can't reach them without your help. I can't get them to know who I am, and I can't get them to know that help is here and that there's somebody who wants to talk with them without trying to climb into their panties. Because that's a real thing. When I was going through my ethics class in grad school, we had a whole 2 weeks on what's considered unethical, and sex with clients came up a few times. And I was like, this is a real thing, huh? Yeah. That you have professionals who are using their professional position to then get past the defenses of the people they're supposed to be helping. Thank you, Joe. And I'm like, wow. And then when I really step back, I said, come on, Keith, you can't be surprised. You know what sex does to people. You leverage that many a times. And I did, and I get it. That's why now it's so important to me to try to help as many women as possible. That's why women are my central focus. Because I was the wolf. I was. And I was good at being a wolf, which was what makes me great at being a shepherd. Because I know what it sounds like. And I know how to defend women now. And I know how to be able to give you insight of what that man is saying or what he's not saying when you ask certain questions. But I can't help you if you don't reach out to me. I can't help you if you want to stay silent. Maybe I can help you get to your netty. Maybe I can help you listen and find the shug that is in your life. But they're there. We all have them. You're not alone in this world. I know it may feel that way. I know at times you may be just like Ms.Celie. Everybody in the church celebrating, but you trying to get past your pain, and it's hard. I get it. I do. But I'm here, and I'm ready to help you. It just requires you reaching out. So if you need to reach out to me, click my profile. There's a link in my bio to set up a discovery call. And you can always just go through the steps, and we'll set up a Zoom call and we'll talk. And if I am the person that can help you, and if I am not, because I'm not all things to everybody. I would love to be, but I'll leave that to God. I will work with you to find somebody else who can help you, but I will not hurt you. If I cannot help you, I'll step out of the way, because it makes no sense to work with somebody that I cannot help. And if I believe you need greater help in terms of somebody at a higher level, psychologist or some type of doctor or something like that, I will refer that to you too. I'm not scared to tell you that, because if the help is what you need to know that. You have some counselors and therapists out there who legitimately should not be working with you because they don't want to let go of the money. They will continue to and then do more damage. I'm not doing that. I refuse. So at 40 after the hour, I am going to stop here. Well, at 40 minutes into this, not 40 after the hour. Let me take that back. Coming up on 40 minutes of this video, I want to say thank you to Joseph Tobia. Shout out to my girl Nissa, my Love Jones partner. What's up, Chubby Nissa? Chubby Nina. Chubby Nina and I am Chubby Darius. That's my girl. We love Love Jones together. I tell you, I'm a movie junkie. Shout out to Nissa. Shout out to my man Flex. Shout out to, I think Pamela I saw share the video. I think I saw Flex. I saw my wife share it. Shout out to my wife, by the way. Shout out to Jose who shares everything. I appreciate you, bro. Shout out to Nissa for sharing. Shout out to Michelle. Thank you so much, Michelle Gillison Robinson. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you. I can't do this by myself. Every successful step that I had is because I have other people who have been in my life to help me. And that's why I do this. And I appreciate you. And hopefully somebody on your timeline will see this and let's have that conversation. All right. I understand your pain, but we don't have to wait to the end of the movie. We can start doing something right now. All right. I am Keith K.L. Belvin, crisis specialist, award-winning author and educator, and more importantly, I am a fan of the movie Color Purple. One of my favorite movies, which I saw in the movies in 1986, cried at least 3 times. I'm so glad it was dark. The young lady I was with, who will remain nameless because I don't want to put your business out there. I don't know if your fiance would like to know that you was dating me at one time. She was like, "Are you crying?" "Oh, no, I'm not. I'm not. Just got a little dirt in my eye. I don't know where it came from here in this dark theater with no breeze." And I still get emotional. And I get emotional for different reasons now. I'm a father now, but I get emotional. One of my favorite movies. But again, go watch The Color Purple and you will see the evidence. I have seen it 10 times, but now I have to study it. Yes, yes. Michelle, check this out. From the very beginning of the movie, I did a video, and actually I have to find, I believe it's on my YouTube page. I discussed the abuse that was seen and talked about in the first 15 minutes of the movie. In the first 15 minutes of the movie, you see molestation, you see abuse, you see everything in the first 15 minutes of the movie, which sets the table for what you're going to see the rest. And if you watch the film through a different lens, and all I want you to do is pay attention to Ms.Celie, but pay attention to her pain. Pay attention to what she's forced into. Pay attention to what she has to deal with as a child. And then ask yourself, what do you think happened in her adult life? We get to see it. But what happens to people who don't have what she has? What happens to them? And then you will start to see where the generational curses begin or how they're continued. But trust me, I've seen it maybe 20, 30 times. Every time I watch it, it's almost brand new to me, even though I know every scene. And that's just Ms.Celie. We haven't talked about Suge Avery. We haven't talked about Miss Sophia. We haven't talked about Harpo's generational curse of being raised by Mr., who later on you see him saying, "Stop laughing. You know, a woman shouldn't laugh at a man." And you actually hear Ms.Celie say to him, "If you didn't try to rule over Sophia, white man wouldn't have got her. But I want you to pay attention to something." He ends up with Miss Sophia, so they get back together. Most folks don't pay attention to that because Squeak says she was leaving to go sing. So he went back to his wife. There are so many nuances to the movies that a lot of people don't pay attention to. I could teach a whole month's worth of things that a lot of folks don't pay attention to. But, you know, it's there. And there's so much prophetic stuff there that her children being given to a barren woman who was a woman of God who then goes to Africa on retreat and then names the child Olivia, only to then when they come back, her sister the aunt ends up with the very ministry that then comes back to reclaim the mother. There's a lot of prophetic things there that most people don't pay attention. As a survivor, it resonates. Situation's not the same, but the pain. Thank you so much for posting that. Because that's why the domestic violence survivors that I work with, one of the things that I've noticed is that people don't understand the depth of their pain of what happened to them. But again, put it in the chat as well, guys. I'm Ms.Celie. I understand Ms.Celie. Put it in the chat. All right, but I'm going to get ready to go. As I said before, I'm Keith K.L. Belvin, crisis specialist, award-winning author, educator, and I am so happy I am here Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 10 o'clock. I try to get on those times. I might be a little late sometimes, depending on what it is, But it has been a pleasure. Come on, Johnny Gill, sing me out of here. Away from me. Here today. Don't give me the world. I just want my girl. Anything. Take it easy.